I heard that you've had a few more than normal and had a few questions for me about some ways that we can hopefully hopefully curb some of those cancellations and start to improve that churn rate a little bit. Yeah. Okay, so you are pretty good at tracking your numbers, so tell me what sort of cancellation rate you've got, like how many cancellations are you getting a month as a percentage? Okay, about 12. All right, that's pretty high. Yeah. Okay, so when you have that much going out the back door, it places such a strong stress on your front end to be able to continue to acquire new customers. It just makes it really difficult to keep up. And ultimately, that's where businesses do end up struggling and unfortunately end up going out of business because they cannot keep up with their churn rate. They're losing, yeah, that's right. If they're losing 10 members every month after month, and they're only putting on 5 members a month, then quickly starts to catch up, and before you know it, you've got bugger all members. Yeah. It's very simple, but it's obvious. Yeah, it sounds obvious and it sounds simple, but it's the truth. And there's no real need to overcomplicate things, but not here to talk about that. We're here to talk a little bit more about ways to improve it. So I do want to say that just about every gym owner I talk to would like to have less cancellations. Yeah, it's just it's a thing. It's a part of business. As much as we want new clients, we also want less cancellations. And if you are getting more clients and you're having cancel, then you're in a good business. And if it's the other way around, then you are likely struggling. So the first thing is to be able to understand the underlying reasons why people are cancelling, because what they tell you when they do cancel, when they are walking out the door, is often not the reason why they are cancelling. Quite often you'll hear schedules changed, they don't have the time, they don't have the money anymore. The same sort of objections that you get when you're trying to sign up people. You know, you hear when they're cancelling too, I've had some extra bills come in and I can't afford it anymore. Oh, my kids have taken up soccer and I don't have the time. Or my partner has, had her hours reduced at work, so we need to cut back on expenses. It's all the same sort of thing. And quite often you will find that those are flat out bullshit, and the reason why they are cancelling is because they're just not using the service. Yeah, inactivity is a precursor to cancellation. So that's right. Yeah, so if they're not using the facility, they're not coming in and training regularly, it really is only a matter of time before their cancellation is coming. Yeah, or they're thinking about it. Because if they compare, they'll often compare to what they were doing at the beginning, and that's why it's very important when you are signing up people in that trial period for them to be coming, 3 or 4 times a week. And then when it comes time to sign a membership, it's a lot easier because they have been using it. Yeah, they've been using it consistently, and they can see themselves justifying the membership fee because they are using it, 3 or 4 times a week. The same applies at the other end. If their attendance has gone from 3 or 4 times a week down to once or twice a week or to not at all, then it's harder for them to justify the expense. Even if it is great value, you run great sessions, you've got a great team. Yeah, you've got a great team, you're running social events, you're changing the programming, you're getting new equipment. All of those things are very important, but not as important as them actually turning up, being able to utilize all those things. So when they aren't coming, it just decreases the perceived value of what the service is. Yeah. So it's the nature of consumerism. You pay for something, you get something back. And when that stops happening, people start to second guess whether they should still be a part of it. And when it comes to any product that you buy, obviously you pay for something, you get the product back. Services, it's a little bit different. If you look at things like insurance, yeah, you look at things like insurance or gym memberships. It's one of those things where you're paying regardless of if you're using it or not. And if you compare it to other services, like if you've got a lawn mowing man and you might pay him $60 every time he comes, if he didn't come one time, you wouldn't still pay him. So it is a little bit different with service. And when you're on the other end of it, especially when you have used it in the past, you often will compare it. It's like, well, I used to go 3 times a week, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and that was great. And now I'm not really going, I'm lucky to make it once or twice a week, so I'm just going to give that up. But when it comes time for them to tell you, I need to cancel, it's hard for them to say that. It's hard for them to take ownership of that and for them to say, oh, listen, I'm not making time for it anymore. Therefore, I'm not seeing value for it. Therefore, I'd like to cancel. They use that another very surface level excuse or reason. Financially, we just need to cut back on some things. I don't have the time anymore. So it's a lot easier for them to say that than to actually tell you the real reason. And they may not know the real reason. So they feel as though that it is becoming an expensive hobby or an expensive habit for them, so to speak. But when they were coming consistently, they didn't second guess it. So that's where the single most important thing is actually them just attending. And whether that starts out at 3 times a week, 2 times a week, 5 times a week, if they have any deviation from that, they can be in danger of not seeing the value that they initially saw. So that's why it's really important to set realistic expectations at the start. And for most people, we find it's around that 3 times a week. If you're trying to get people to come every single day, it's going to be very hard to sustain. And someone who was coming 5 days a week who starts coming 3 times a week, again, they're not going to see value for it because they used to come 5 times a week. So there's just about every software, if you do have, So what Wodify is what we've used for our personal gyms. That tracks attendance, and most other booking softwares are going to be very easy for you to be able to track attendance or lack of attendance, and that's the most simple way for you to be able to determine how often someone's been coming. And there's sort of a few practices you can put into place. At a minimum, you want to be contacting people every week if they're not coming. So if someone doesn't make it through for the whole week, you want to send them a message on Monday and say something to the effect of, hey, I noticed you didn't make it through last week, hoping everything is okay, and would love to have you back this week. When would be a good time for you to make it back in? Sending that message or a variation of that message every single Monday for anyone who hasn't come the week before. If you weren't to do anything else that we talk about now and you just started doing that, that would make a huge difference in the amount of people cancelling. It does a few things. It shows that you care. It shows that you're taking the time to actually see if they are or aren't coming, and they feel a part of it. They know they've been missed, and the owner or the manager, whoever is taking responsibility for that, is going out of their way to do that. And you'll even get some bonus points if you make that phone call instead of sending a text message, because quite often people will feel like it's an automated message or you're copy pasting, which we all do. But if you actually call that person, and even if you get voicemail, you leave a voicemail, that can go a long way. So if you have the ability to do that, I would definitely suggest that. And leverage technology. You don't have to go through every single person and ask your coaches or think, oh, did that person come last week or not? As long as you've got like a really solid sign-in system, then that's going to make life a lot easier, just to be able to get a quick data report for who hasn't come the week before, and then make those phone calls and or send those text messages to those people. If you want to get really granular and you wanted to take it to the next level, you could contact people on a Tuesday, probably around those midday after those mid-morning sessions finish up. And if someone hasn't come through Monday or Tuesday morning, get in touch. Hey, I just noticed I haven't seen you this week. Just double checking if you're coming in this afternoon or tomorrow for your first one for the week. And you want to talk about like accountability, then that really is next level. And I can guarantee you there wouldn't be many businesses, trainers, gyms, or any one of the like that are taking their accountability to that level. So if you're really wanting to get on top of things, that can be something to fast track it. But I think a good place to start would be the weekly message. If you get that down pat, you have some good systems around that, then you might want to go into, like I said, Yeah, that's right. Then you might want to take it to the next level. Start contacting them on Tuesday if they missed the Monday or that Tuesday morning. So it really is quite simple when you think about it, but being more of like you say, boutique gym, or whatever that word is, when we are sort of very interactive with our members. We're not personal training, but we're also not a big Globo gym. We've got exactly. You got 125 members. So it's like we can have that sort of personal connection with people. You already know their names, you know their partners, you know what they do for work, you know what their kids do, you know everything about them. And then the next step is just to make sure we are staying on top of them and providing that accountability, and make it known that we know when they don't come in. And that extra money that they're paying us on top of what they can pay if they go down to a 24/7 gym, that's where you're going to earn it. All the coaching, all the stuff that happens in-house is great, but none of it matters if they're not showing up. So take the time to develop a system like this. You've got the team in place to be able to help you with it. Yeah, and guarantee you if you do that on a weekly basis, you'll see a big difference.